And I'll minimize this. So here.
All right. Pleased to be here this morning. Been under the weather for the last couple of weeks, so it is a pleasure to be here. My wife and I, just by way of introduction, my wife and I we both serve here at the Family Search Center. My wife comes in a couple of sessions a week, and I come in once. And we both serve as service missionaries in Family Search. And if any of you are interested in a good service mission, and you're interested in doing something in Family Search, I suggest that mission. It's a very, very good mission. We get to do all kinds of interesting and strange things. Typically on a service mission and Family Search, that you go into the mission and you're given very specific tasks to do it and given very specific ways of doing it. In our mission group, it's exactly the opposite. They bring you in and say, okay, here's some stuff that need to be tested, need to be tried out, go to it. One of the things that I picked up on a couple of was a new database called Census Tree. And Census Tree is a product of, originally it was created as a academic database. And what I mean by that is that one of the problems they have in academia is tracking families. Sound familiar? And so what they did was they went into the U.S. census records from 1850 to 1940, and through basically artificial intelligence, they created a whole library of family trees based on the U.S. Census. And so this allows academics to then track a family generation to generation to generation, which is normally very difficult to do. So one of the things that they did, the BYU Record Linking Lab did, which is an organization out of BYU that our mission is associated with, what they did was they created a database that could be searched within Family Search in a way that's useful for genealogists or family search folks. Now, in my playing around with this, it just came out in January, came out the end of the year. It was up in December, but it wasn't working exactly right. And then it finally got working in January. But what I found that it's very useful for, thing that I find most useful first is finding missing census records. Now, you may or may not realize that when you are dealing with trying to have a robust profile in Family Search, the place that you get the most errors, unique spellings, shall we say, is from census records. And so if you're missing a census record, there's an excellent chance that that person is out there or could be out there as a separate individual, as a duplicate. And so one of the things that this database is very good at is finding missing census records. And then you see the list here and a whole bunch of other kinds of things that it's useful for. I've found it also useful for basically debugging a profile, i.e. looking at the profile and seeing the things that don't really belong. It has a very nice grid, and I'll show you in a moment, of how to that shows you all of the sources lined up and all the data for those sources, which makes it very easy to identify outliers. Some links. This is the organization that was created to own this database. This is a direct link to the database in FamilySearch. If you're interested in some of the work that I've done on building up robust profiles, see that. And then the presentation I'm going to show you this morning is this one right here. So you can go online. And what I do is I update this from time to time as I experiment with it, as I learn about it. So from time to time, you might want to pull a new one. Okay. Census Tree. Basically, the Census Tree has 5 standard screens. First one, if you've gone into any of the searches on FamilySearch, you'll recognize this search. This is standard. And then again, you have the standard search results screen. And then if you select one of the people here, then you end up with a family tree, which again probably looks familiar to you. And then these 2 screens are the guts of the system as far as the way it's displayed. And what you have is you have a tree as seen and known to Census Tree, i.e. the census records, okay? And then this one is a view of what the tree is known to FamilySearch. Now, where do you find this puppy? Let's click over here and let's just, okay, so we go under searches. We come down here under genealogies. Okay, it's because it's not a record search. It's not an image search. It's not a family tree search. It's not a catalog search. It is considered to be a genealogy. Okay. Click on the genealogy. And then when you get in here, it just says, okay, start searching. Well, what you actually want to do is come down here and come under the computer generated trees. Okay. And then under here, you say view all trees. And you scroll down. They hit it pretty good. Here you have the census tree. All right, so here we go. So here's the census tree, and here's the path to get there. Now, what you want to do, my experience is the best way to find people in this database is to enter the name and the place. Census based. And so where did the ancestor that you're looking for live? What state? You don't need to, well, you can put whatever you want in there, obviously, but I found that was the most useful because birth date, if you think about it, death date doesn't show up on the census record, so that doesn't do you any good. And you all know how, shall we say, inaccurate or flexible your phone.
My phone is in my coat. It's gonna go off.
And birth dates, you know how birth dates tend to vary in census records. So the thing that's actually the most useful is search. Okay. Now I went looking for my mother. And so I put her name, maiden name. I tried married name, but turns out my parents got, or I couldn't find them anyway, in the 1950. I was born in 45, so they were somewheres. I think my dad was in the military and mom was living with her dad, mom. Okay, so here's my mom. So I say, okay, this is the one, and she was living mostly in Idaho. Is the most common place that she was living was Idaho. So I found her in Idaho. I thought she lived in Oregon. Now, just a hint. Sometimes it's hard to find people in here, just like any other database. And I found two tricks that work pretty good. One is that if you have found at least one, you already know about at least one census record during that time period. If what you do is you come down here and take the information, the name and the place, and park it over here in the search, then basically you basically have 100% probability of finding them. Okay. If that doesn't work, the way I ended up actually finding my mother was by flipping dad. I found her father in the tree, and then after I found dad, then I found his daughter. Okay. So here's what I find when I so here's actually my grandpa, Israel Barlow, my mom. And so what you need to do is you need to determine a focus person, who you really want to look at. Okay. Now, you have a couple of choices. One, you can actually attach this record to the family tree. So if you're working on somebody that isn't in the tree at all right now, then you can go right over here to the family tree and attach this person right to the tree with their parents or siblings or children or whatever is in the census. Okay. It's kind of cool. Now, in my case, basically all my ancestors are already in the tree, so that's not that helpful. But so I want to actually go and look at the individual. Now, the trick is this right column here, you have to scroll to the bottom. Because if you don't scroll to the bottom, you won't see this view sources. So you'll think there's nothing there. So if you click on the view sources, what that does is it gives you this grid. This is a exceedingly extensive grid. It could blow you away. So let me just start over here on the left. What this is all the data about this person in the census tree. So here you see my mother was in the 1930 and the 1940 census as far as the census tree is concerned. That's where they found her in 1930 and 1940. Hey, you look over here, and this is the person, right? There's my mother's name, sex, birth date, birthplace, their dates of interest, in this case, the census record residence. So you recognize those 30 and 40 and 35. And these are the places that she was at, where she was. Okay. Now, the tricky part is that there is columns groups of columns for everybody that's attached to her in the tree. So I'm going to go down here to the next page and I'll come back. For example, it has her father, it has her mother. If she'd been married in these censuses, it would have had spouse. If there was more than one spouse over time,
These columns further to the right than what we just said.
it's about this wide and your screen's about this wide. It's very, very, very wide. There's no way you're going to get this on any screen. So just be aware that that's where it's at. Okay. Now, up here, if you come over here and you say click on father or mother, then it changes the focus. And so that person that you clicked on then becomes the focus person. Okay. All righty. Now, a couple of interesting little tricks about this. First off, if you click right here on this line, this is the line as known to Census Tree. So this is what it thinks it knows about Myrtle in the tree. Okay, so this is what it's concluded about her. Okay, that line. If you click on that line, it takes you back to this screen. Okay. And then it lists for you the census records that it found that it thinks that that's her. Okay. Now, if you click on this, what that takes you does is it takes you to the FamilySearch record detail screen. You're familiar with that, where it shows you the record and you can attach it, or you could, that's it. So it just takes you to the FamilySearch view of that census record in FamilySearch. All right. Come back to this little guy here because that's the little jewel. Now, if you want to sort these columns, you can click on any of these fields and it sorts it. Now, the only one I found real useful for it is the date of the census record, because this is not sorted by date normally. So it could be if for example, about 5 of these, it could go 1930, 1910, 1940, 1920. Okay. And so a little trick, you can just click over here under dates and it'll sort it. Okay. Now this little arrow, if you click on that, it minimizes that column. Okay. Now, one of the things that's very interesting, and we'll go over here to the other. All right, where'd it go? Close it. No, I didn't. All right, so I'm gonna find my grandpa. Oops.
By you, are you linking lab that created this? Somebody
Affiliated with a professor that was, it's a consortium of like 3 universities that created the original database, and the record linking lab created Census Tree. Okay. This is my grandpa. See what I mean by you have to go down to the bottom here? So one of the things that's kind of neat about these little paper clips is this shows you the census record Okay, so here you see an example of how they're not in order. Okay. So if you come over here and data just switches to order. Okay. What you can do is this paperclip shows you in FamilySearch who to whom this census record is attached. Understand that in FamilySearch, it might not be attached to the same person. Now, Census Tree thinks that all these 5 census records were the same person. FamilySearch may not think so. Okay? So what you do in order to tell that real quickly, you come down here and you see this ARC number. Now, the last bit of that ARC number is actually the PID. Okay. KWC4 6KB for my grandpa is actually his PID. Okay. So then what you can do is you can just scan down here and just say this attached to the same guy. Now, in this case, it is. But I have already in my research multiple times found they weren't attached to the same person. So that's a clue that you need to go do a little research. Okay. Also, if you click on this, then what it does is goes to the next screen I'm going to show you, which is what's called the FamilySearch grid. And I'm not going to do that just now. Okay. And let's see the next. Yeah, it minimizes, refocuses. Yeah. It's a good, useful idea. I've discovered one of the things that's interesting is that if people are not, it's not clear that people are separate individuals, the census record, for example, her siblings, they may actually have a sibling in there more than once. So that gives you a clue again that perhaps there's something that you want to look at. Okay. All right. Now let's go to the FamilySearch tree. Now I purposely picked one that wasn't quite so busy as Grandpa's. And this happens to be my sister, who was killed in an automobile accident when she was just before her 15th birthday. So this is her in FamilySearch. Now you notice what it did, what it's done is this line here is what FamilySearch says she is. Okay, so this is the data that's in FamilySearch. So this shows birth date, birthplace, death plate, parents, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Now, what they do is they're very kind in that they list every source attached to that person in FamilySearch. And they display it in this grid. So we go back over to my grandpa, and you see all of the sources that are attached to grandpa. Okay. Now, obviously, what you can do then is you can scan down here and see if grandpa's got the same name all the way through. Scan down to see if he's always a male. You can scan down and see what his birth dates are, where he was born, etc. Okay. Now you notice how skinny this little slider is. It gives you a hint of how big this thing is. So over here goes his. He's got a mother 1, got a mother 2. He's got spouse, child one, child two, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what it does is it shows you everything that's in that source for that person. So again, if we come over here to his mother, so this shows you that in on one source, she was Sarah Call. Here she was a Dora. Here she was a Fanny, a different Fanny. Okay, so immediately it goes, okay. Now, given my grandpa was the son of a polygamist, there's a fair chance that what we've got here is different wives, okay? But that just gives you the chance to look at it and see up here, says her mother's got 3 different names. Is that true? Now, if you click on this little puppy, it depends on where you are and what you're doing. It gives you different results. I haven't figured out what the pattern is, so I can't tell you what it is. And then if you click up here, then that goes to the detail page. So that immediately takes you to back to the detail page at FamilySearch. Another nice little feature it's got here, it's got a 0 to 5-star source quality rating. Tells you what the Census Tree thinks the quality of that source is. Okay. And if we go over here to Grandpa, let's go back. So you see, if you start at the bottom right away, we got a 0 in the obits. My experience is that almost all the obits are zeros. But I have found, so here's one that says 0, but it's, so you got, here's 1, 3. So you got different ones, and I have found that useful because I just automatically look at all the ones that are less than, and sure enough, some of them are in fact bad. Okay. Now, I actually find it more useful in my case to go over and actually look at the data, but you might. Again, you got the minimization, you got the sorting. And here again is a suggestion that you scan the column, the details for inconsistencies and improbabilities, just like you usually do. But this is really nice because it lays it out on one grid. It's a whole lot easier and faster than scanning down the sources page. Okay. In the extension, again, you see it goes out on out here. Okay. Now, because you were so kind as to come to my class, I'm going to give you a little secret. This is what's, I think, known as a hack in the modern parlance. If you take any PID, in this, you recognize this as the URL, right? This you take when you've got this screen open, when you got the FamilySearch screen open. Let's go and go back to my grandpa. Here. That's my grandpa's PID. If I should replace that, case I'm going to, I think it's my 3rd great grandpa, killed in Hans Mill. So I put his PID in there. there. Allah. Now you notice that he died in 1838, so he didn't make it to any of the census that's in this database. But this grid still works for any PID. And so this allows you to use this grid, which is great for diagnosing, for example, tangles. Angles, okay? Or you just want to look at it and see, make sure that the sources that are attached to your person is consistent.
That's interesting. On the sources on the left, you got the same Indiana marriage database, one with a 0 and one with 5.
Yeah, if you look across here, actually, I did keep it. If you look across, the FamilySearch says that she was married to 2 different women, which I haven't looked at yet, but I'm pretty sure one of them is either wrong or a duplicate. So this tells me right off the bat, see, what a marriage has got a 0. that's a pretty high probability. In fact, is bad. So this gives you access to this grid. I did is I put this up in my favorites, put in there XXXXX, and I click on it and substitute in the PID that I'm looking for. Voila, I have a new tool. And again, it's very useful, like I say, and I don't have a screenshot of it, but if I go over here to, oh, well, actually, I probably could find that he's got 2 wives. And I'm pretty sure he only had 1. But I had need to do a little research because I didn't know that he had 2 wives here until I was doing this slide. Okay. Any questions?
So is it still being added to, or is
It's done for now. I don't know the plans. I haven't asked them. My suspicion is what this is actually is. This particular one is a test to use AI in building up other databases from other collections and or multiple collections. So it's I haven't heard that for sure, but I just knowing the way Dr. Price, who is the professor on this, thinks, I'm pretty sure that that's what it is happening. Okay. All righty. Any questions? All righty.